Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping straight into the shadows to act as cold observers of a truly grim, dark fable. We are going to bear witness to a tragedy that was, quite literally, set in stone long before the first step was ever taken. We're unpacking the four liturgies of dark masonry and the jester's stone silence. These are two parables that offer us a profound, philosophical deep dive into the actual anatomy of a grudge. So let's just dive right into this allegory of pride, revenge, and the architecture of a downfall.
Picture this. Our story takes place in what the text hauntingly calls the skeletal belly of the earth. Just take a second to let that imagery really sink in. Down here, deep underground, where the architectural bones of a kingdom are laid bare, something absolutely terrible is happening. The vibrant fire of imagination is being methodically transmuted into the cold steel of permanent suffering. It's an alchemy of malice, really. And to understand how it works, we need to look closely at the practitioners of this dark liturgy.
To wrap our heads around this tragedy, we've got to define our two central archetypes. First up, we have the jester. He represents the high priest of vanity, a figure completely blinded by the intoxicating nectar of his own pride. Opposing him, or rather quietly hunting him, is the shadow. The shadow operates as the high priest of ego. He's driven by an absolute, methodical, and incredibly venomous devotion to vengeance. So you have one player who is loud and completely oblivious, and another who is entirely silent and calculating.
Okay, let's look at the first piece of this puzzle, the floor of philosophies, a structure of suffering.
Now, looking at the layout of this dark masonry, it's wild how every archetype cultivates their own bitter fertilizer of exclusion and fear. For example, the bard wields a lute of dull lead to exact this sort of alchemical vengeance through memory. But our main focus falls on the jester, clutching his cracked glass of vanity, and the shadow, gripping his hidden trowel. Together with the high priest's iron shackles, these sacred tools aren't being used to build a sanctuary. No, they are building a permanent tomb.
Which brings us to part two, the carnival versus the catacombs, dueling liturgy.
Now, what's absolutely fascinating here is the stark contrast. We are looking at two completely different mindsets when it comes to revenge. On one side, the jester thinks his grudge is simply the world's refusal to recognize his hidden godhood. He carries this stained blueprint of pride around, viewing revenge as a loud ritual of self-consecration. But on the flip side, the shadow's view is entirely different. To him, vengeance is a methodical gardening process. Driven by a venomous grudge, his only goal is the literal pruning of a rival's vitality so they never ever reach the sky. It is the fundamental difference between demanding applause and quietly preparing a grave.
Now, for part three, descent into dark masonry, the jester's stone silence.
We're going to track this philosophical descent in 4 agonizing steps. And guys, this isn't just a story, it is a fatalistic trap executing its rigid conclusion. We move from a cunning whisper up in the upper world all the way down to the inescapable reality of the catacombs.
All right, step one, the whisper of falsehood. The shadow, hiding his face behind a mask of silk, plays the concerned friend. He seizes upon his rival's vanity by whispering a cunning falsehood about this rare, precious vintage hidden deep within his ancestral vaults. The jester, fancying himself the absolute ultimate judge of fine spirits, takes the bait immediately. The trap is officially set, and it's perfectly tailored to the victim's intoxicating pride.
And that drags us right into step 2, the drunken descent. Hypnotized by this fake promise and absolutely desperate to outshine all other connoisseurs, the jester's stubborn arrogance pushes him deeper. As we watch from a cold distance, we see the jester draped in motley, his bells ringing and echoing in the subterranean tombs. His cough grows heavier in the damp catacombs, but he just ignores it. He is literally leading himself away from the joyful festival lights and down into the dark, simply because his ego will not allow him to turn back.
Then we hit step 3, the iron shackles. They finally reach this remote, pitch-black recess in the granite, and bam, the trap is sprung. With terrifying swiftness, the shadow chains the drunken fool right to the stone. In an instant, the jester's cracked glass of self-consecration shatters, replaced by the cold, hard reality of iron. That abstract philosophy of the ego, it has suddenly become intensely, physically real.
Which leaves us at step 4, the heavy masonry. The jester gets hit with a sudden, panicked sobriety. His desperate pleas start echoing from the niche. But the shadow? He's completely unmoved. Guided by his dark liturgy, he draws a hidden trowel and methodically lays heavy masonry. He is walling in the poison. He is pruning the deadwood of his rival. He ignores the pleas entirely, focused solely on ensuring the jester never sees the sky again.
Moving on to part 4, the twisted roots, a rigid structural conclusion.
This is where we see the absolute grim success of the Shadow's ritual. What started out as this messy design of a venomous grudge has been brought to a rigid architectural conclusion. The jester, that heroic silhouette of vanity, that vibrant branch of imagination, is now forever trapped in bitter soil. Buried beneath heavy masonry, this permanent tomb of cold stone will remain undisturbed for half a century. 50 years of absolute, horrifying success for the Shadow.
And in the end, we're just left with this chilling silence. The heavy masonry is complete. The only sound remaining is the last, haunting jingle of the jester's bells fading behind the cold stone, right before being swallowed entirely by the dark.
So the real takeaway here, the crucial question you've got to ask yourself as you look at these archetypes in the mirror is this. What heavy masonry hides in your own ancestral vaults? Are you like the jester, blinded by the nectar of your ego, clutching a stained blueprint of pride? Or are you more like the shadow, quietly laying the dark stones of a venomous grudge? It's a pretty profound allegory about what we bury in our own psychological catacombs, isn't it? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring the dark depths of what you read.